You have to be a veteran.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the October 26th meeting of the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee. I would ask to have everybody rise so we can say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would ask we do a roll call, and we'll start at my far right, and we'll go right around the room.
You're up.
Just a roll call.
Tell us who you are.
Ann LaGoy's here.
Kevin Svoboda.
Don Pristula.
Eddie Colon.
Fred Cantor.
Greg Totino.
Liz Axelson.
John Foreman.
Jonathan Cantor.
Teresa Lundgren.
Megan Losister of Drake Globe PLC.
Okay, thank you for attending, and I will now turn this over to Elizabeth.
Good evening. My name is Liz Axelson. I'm with CPL. I'm the planning consultant to the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee, who we see seated here, some of them, most of them. And also, ultimately, when this Comprehensive Plan Update ends up in the town board's hands, I will do my part before the town board. So, the first thing I would like to do is to update the committee on where we're at as of a conversation that I had today with Stephen Gaba of Drake Globe, and also based on some work that I've been doing behind the scenes to get ready for the environmental quality review of the comprehensive plan update. And then I'll tell you what I've done lately with the comprehensive plan update. So basically, through the course of a few discussions, it was decided that the best approach for the comprehensive plan update through the State Environmental Quality Review Act process is to do a draft generic EIS. And I think I spoke to the committee at a prior meeting kind of saying, I'm going to be writing some of the same information to talk about what impacts there will be and not be when you're adopting a comprehensive plan update. And this particular comprehensive plan update is a plan only. It doesn't involve any draft zoning amendments. It does include recommendations to consider future zoning amendments, but those zoning amendments are not on the table now, and we don't know whether they will be and when. So I started preparing all the materials as if I was going to be sending them to the town clerk today by 3 p.m. in the last few days. And so far what I've prepared, and they're really ready to go, but full environmental assessment form part 1, which is a form that's really meant for projects, land development projects. So there are only a few questions answered and a couple notes about how this is a plan and there's no land development proposed. And then it has an attachment that explains all that in detail. I created a full environmental assessment form part 2, which is the identification of potential project impacts. And again, because this isn't a land development project, almost all of the items, impacts on land, surface water, groundwater, flooding, air, et cetera, agricultural resources, open space and recreation, critical environmental areas, they're all marked no impact with a note that says something like the proposed action does not involve a project or any land development application. And it's only when you get to the end and consistency with community plans, it's still marked that there's no impact, but it says the proposed action does not involve a project or any land development, paraphrasing. Proposed action is a comprehensive plan update, which is based on the town of Fishkill comprehensive plan adopted 2009, building and expanding on the vision, goals, and objectives of the 2009 plan, refer to the CPU. So that kind of sets the stage for full EAF Part 3, which is called a determination of significance. And the long and short of it, this would be a type 1 action, which means it has the possibility of having a significant impact and needing an environmental impact statement, or EIS. And so in this form, it's indicated that the project will have a significant adverse impact on the environment. I haven't checked it, but that's what it's going to be. And then I went ahead and prepared a draft. These are all draft environmental documents. Draft positive declaration and scoping, which says positive declaration means this will have a significant impact on the environment. And scoping means it's also would notice that there will be a scoping outline made available to agencies and that the town will hold a scoping session at some point and accept comments from the public and agencies and members of the community, et cetera. So I had prepared all that on October 25th, including a scoping outline, which is technically an outline for a draft generic environmental impact statement. Generic meaning, since there's no land development and since this is proposed planning, it's going to speak generally about the potential impacts, which I would suggest are going to generally be very positive for the community in terms of providing guidance. So all that was ready to go, and I would have submitted it to Becky, and I had been waiting to speak to Stephen Gaba for a few days, and we finally connected. And what came out of that conversation is a discussion about what remained to be done to the comprehensive plan update, some of which was substantial, and some of which is not so substantial, but I had been working feverishly to complete those items. So we both agreed that it made more sense to wait for the town board to take action on November 16th. Originally, I had been looking toward a submittal to the town clerk so that the CPU committee could have another joint meeting with the town board on November 2nd, next Wednesday. But I think this is a better timeline. So hopefully on November 16th, the town board will consider these actions and probably set a scoping session for a month from that date. And I'm also going to speak to Mr. Gaba about the possibility of setting a scoping session and maybe also setting a public hearing so that if the public and agencies are going to comment and come in, they can speak to both. The comments are going to be very similar. So that's what I'm hoping for, but we didn't get that far in the discussion because we were both busy. So anyway, it gives us a tiny bit of breathing room, but I still was pressing to get a lot done today. I went back through comments from some September 14th, the committee meeting, September 28th, and a recent meeting, I think something more recent than that, the latest one that we had, where it was Zoom. And I had comments, and I tried to go through this draft comprehensive plan update document and add as many of those in as possible. And the most important thing, the biggest thing that's been added here to the draft comprehensive plan update is an implementation plan. So what that does, it's 5 pages long. And what it does is it goes through each of the sections, the goals, objectives, strategies, and tries to give a timeline for each item. So I hope to, before the end of the week, finish this draft so that I can send it out to the committee by email. And then you can have a look, see what I addressed, see what I missed, see what other comments you have. So my timeline to make sure that this moves forward will be to submit everything to the town clerk by November 9th, a week before the town board meeting by 3 p.m. So if I get that out the end of this week, I guess the next question, and we can discuss this after, is whether we want to have, since we won't be on the town board agenda.
Right, on the 16th, but we have.
No, we won't be on the town board agenda on the 2nd.
On the 2nd.
Our next meeting would have been the 9th.
Right. The same day you're going to have that completed.
The same day I'm going to have this completed. But the committee will have had a chance to look at this I could potentially make changes up until the 9th. I guess the question is,
Are you saying that this, that I'm looking at now, this is what, so we should just email you or email everybody our comments?
I guess that's the best way to handle it, and like I said, I'm gonna send this out Friday, so you'll have it. And then I suppose emailing comments would be the best
Oh,
thing.
you're gonna send us this?
We haven't gotten it yet.
Okay.
No, you haven't gotten it, because,
Okay, all right.
because it wasn't ready to send out today, and sending it out the day of the meeting has to be just about the worst thing
I did-
that I think I could do to
I did
committee
write, I
members.
did write on it, though.
That's okay, that's the
We're not-
share copy.
We're not gonna slash around a local water park, we're gonna splash around.
Yes, definitely not slashing, so yes.
like, oh, that's
So now you see why I didn't want to send it out, because it's.
It is Halloween.
It's a macro. True. So anyway, it's not ready for press.
Okay.
But it's close.
Yeah.
It's close. It needs a table of contents. Jonathan sent some beautiful photographs, which, once I get a table of contents in here and get the appendix list all straightened out, I think it's in pretty good shape.
Did we ever get feedback from the school district, or?
Oh, yeah.
I know that was.
I emailed to all of them, but I didn't hear anything back.
and then-
So,
Because I'm just thinking at the last couple of sections. I know
Right.
schools was on there.
Yep.
I know the other communities around us. And so I know that they were still, we really hadn't gone over them. So where are we with that, other than we emailed them and haven't heard anything?
that's it,
And
that's it.
Greg, you were going to reach out as well, but that was before I think you changed jobs, or maybe after or something.
Okay.
So,
My cost
so we
isn't here.
probably didn't hear anything, or something was not sent
Here
out
it
then?
is.
Is there a way that we can put in here somehow, like, let's say we still don't hear from them? Like, can we just make an acknowledgement that we want to get feedback from the school?
Well, there's another opportunity. So right now I'm looking at the draft SECRA positive declaration and scoping notice. And so it tells about when the scoping session would have been, but it'll be later. At the end of this, it indicates that the notice would be circulated to the following. So I have Town of Fishkill Planning Board, Recreation Department, Blodgett Memorial Library, Town of Wappinger Town Board, Town of East Fishkill Town Board, City of Beacon Mayor and City Council, Village of Fishkill Mayor and Board of Trustees, Town of Phillips Town Board in the County of Putnam, Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development, and then we should have the school districts.
Yeah.
And that's as far as I got on that list. I'm sure other ideas will come. So I'll add the school districts, and so we can send them the scoping and all this. And it's kind of hard to say. I don't know how responsive the school district has been to this type of thing in the past.
Right. It's hard.
If I remember from the last one, I think they had someone on their board who was more integrated into the school system, so they got obviously a lot more. And again, I knew it was going to be a slow reaction, that's why I had brought it up sooner versus later. It's, especially during a school year,
Right.
there's a lot of things going on.
Right.
So then for the last part, with our, the communities around us, the town board has liaisons to those other towns.
I would think.
So would it be maybe a good idea to ask their input if they have talked to or have any input in, we have shared goals, like I know the Beacon has been pushing for the rail trail. I don't know if the other towns are as well that pass through. So that's a common bringing together of communities. Obviously, I forget what you call them, where the people come into the town, obviously.
Gateways?
The gateways.
Yeah.
Where they're coming and going, that's where it borders other towns. So that's where that affects those kind of things, so maybe getting their input might be important. But again, town liaisons from the board, we have a board member here.
Yep.
I don't know,
I'm actually the liaison to the city of Beacon.
Beacon. So maybe,
I can definitely schedule a meeting with the city manager.
yeah, reach out and just kind of say, this is what we got going on.
Yep.
What, I don't even know what it needs to be said in this, but obviously we want good neighbor things,
Yeah, and Beacon, I'm gonna say about 5 years ago, just updated their master plan.
Okay.
Kind of, probably a little more than what we're doing,
Mhm.
but it was a big deal, 50 people at the meetings, and everybody's got input, so it was an interesting, I wasn't on the board or anything, but
Yeah.
I watched, so.
So actually, their input would be very good, since they've
Yeah.
already gone through it. I'm sure they had a section similar.
Yep.
And so I would love to hear from all the liaisons from our town to get their input and have like that little meeting.
Yep.
I believe the village just did theirs not too long ago, the same. So I imagine we're probably on the,
I think Louise is the village.
so,
I think Brian might be the town of Wappinger, so.
yeah. So, yeah, if we can get feedback, even if it's just a blurb, we look forward to working together on multiple projects. Again, anything we can put in to help get a grant that would cross, or help those kind of things along. That's, I guess, probably where we would want to put in, right?
Very good
Joint
idea.
projects between towns, neighbors, blah, blah, blah. Gateway's a perfect thing, if we can get grants to, put one on our side and their side, they want gateways too, I'm sure.
Power and numbers.
Power and numbers, right. So, what else we got? We got schools, we got that. Was there anything else
We were going to, Liz, you were going to update on the water situation.
Okay,
From the meeting, yeah.
so,
There's a-
yes, that's true.
Was that one of the sections on there too, or is that one
No,
put in
that-
somewhere
no,
else?
No, that was the one where you had, the guys had this, he came in and.
Right,
talked,
right, right.
But we needed to put it in writing.
Right. I'm just saying, I know we still have sections we haven't even covered yet. So I'm trying to say, is there any other sections that we
Well,
haven't covered?
Actually,
Water-
running
water
out of
is something
sections.
You want to communicate with the other towns, because we're sharing so much now. We're sharing with Wappingers, we're definitely doing the village, Beacon we're sharing with. We're not really doing that with Phillipstown, but maybe, because they're having a drought right now themselves.
And our aquifer map and our historical overlays, they do correspond with the towns around us. So if we want to wrap those together, I don't know, that's actually good.
Don't we supply water to Beacon? Is it Beacon or
No.
Wappingers? or-
I thought we got,
We got it.
We have waste-
We get from everybody else. We got really.
Beacon gets a lot of their water from us,
Right.
but it's
Okay.
not through us. It's because they own the rights up in the mountain.
I'm going to pass around, glad you all asked. These are copies of a write-up. I put together a write-up based on, this is about water and sewer.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I guess, so the aquifer doesn't, regardless of who owns the
Oh,
waterways.
this is the water. Okay.
Doesn't the water, that aquifer that's
The
south
village,
of the mall,
that's the village aquifer, they own the
Right.
property, and
Right.
and then we buy water
we
from
can buy
them.
water from them. So the village supplies water to.
It comes from the village, but it comes from the
Okay,
town of.
Yeah,
it
I
comes
mean,
from
I
the
knew
town.
it was, the aquifer supplies quite a bit of that. So, I mean, regardless, anybody would be interested, I would think, in
Right.
our new,
Yes.
aquifer
And if,
goals.
yeah, and if many of you might have been smelling it when you go into the village,
Yeah.
but they've been updating their sewer plant. And I don't know what the capacity is that they're updating it to, but some of our areas use that.
Right.
But they were having a problem last week in Jacksonville with the water. It's just what you say.
So maybe a section in that last section to maybe bring it back, so,
Which,
so the last section is our partnerships with our towns around us. And then how certain, maybe then broken down to environmental, historical, gateways, and another one, I can't think of it. Oh, infrastructure. infrastructure, right? Because we do share across all of these borders. You know, the schools, the water, the sewer, that partnership is, even if it's a blurb saying, you know, we want to continue that fine, you know, partnership, even though it's a legal document that says they got to do what, but it's the same.
Yes, I'm writing a note about that.
Okay.
So, yeah, we can do that. I wouldn't write anything that goes into detail, but to note the different things that are shared across the boundaries and
Liz, just real quick on
on
this.
those
I'm looking at this.
environmental, historical gateways, infrastructure.
Yes, and shared communities, maybe.
Yeah,
Liz, what is it, when you did this, you have Breakerhoff Water District, two different ones.
okay. Let me, that's what I wanted to explain. So I would like to go back to the water and wastewater question. So,
You want this back?
no, you can keep looking at that. I didn't prepare that. So what happened is, I reviewed my meeting notes and looked at some other information, and I did a draft write-up, and I sent it over to Michael Tremper over at KMO, who's the town's water and sewer administrator, something like that. I wrote it somewhere. Anyway, I sent it over to him.
Water sewer czar.
Czar. That's a nice title.
Czar.
That's, yeah. So, I sent it over to him Monday afternoon, and I emailed it, and then I called his office and said, can you let him know I emailed this, and, whatever comments he has, I'll revise it, and then I can plug it into the plan. And what happened is, I didn't hear anything, so this morning I called Michael and spoke to him, and he said, you know what? He said, I looked at your text, it's fine, but, he said, we already have a write-up that we use all the time. And so his secretary sent me a PDF, and I printed out a couple copies of it so you could see. And what I did is, let's see, in our section on promote good design of the built environment, one of the objectives is, has to do with encouraging compact development, and then we start talking about one of the limiting factors being public water and public wastewater. And so I put a paragraph in there that reads something like this. The Town of Fishkill Comprehensive Plan Update Committee meeting of September 14th included an extensive discussion with Michael Tremper, KMO Pollution Control, Inc., the Town of Fishkill Water and Sewer Operator. Please refer to the appendix for information about the Town of Fishkill's water and sewer districts provided by KMO Pollution Control. So that's going to be an appendix. That's how he wanted to do it. And he's used this write-up, and it's most accurate, and it's more detailed than what I had from his conversation. So that's how that's going to be
Now, where is this going in,
It's going to be an appendix.
so it'll just be an appendix?
Right.
But in what section will that
It's
appendix?
it's in the section promote good design of the built environment.
Okay.
And the first objective is promote better design and reduce the number of automobile trips by permitting compact mixed-use development in identified areas of the town to encourage walking and public transit. And there's a paragraph after that where we're acknowledging the limiting factors of public water supply and public wastewater treatment. And so then that paragraph goes in and it refers to that appendix.
Okay. So I was not able to go to the meeting last week. I was
That's all right.
freezing my keister off. But the note I watched it today, at least our section. I didn't follow the rest. Ozzy talked about trying to limit, and Carmine, the salt going into the wells. Is that brought up in this? Because they were very
It brought up the
wanted
problem.
known
Yes.
that they would like to work on that problem, and I wasn't sure. That's why I definitely made a note about wanting to ask about if that is covered. And
It is. It is a paragraph. Hang on. It's in protecting environmental resources. It's after the large parcel
It's
analysis.
covered in here saying that there are problems with certain things of all of it for
Yep.
certain problems, like, reading this.
Right, we can say that there's a problem, but I think what they were trying to say is, we want to fix the problem.
Yes.
And if it's not put in there, that is definitely something we need to put in there,
We need to put it
because
there.
that is definitely grantable, some of these things,
I know.
like replacing
I know.
our current, salt with a different product, they might be, pet projects that people are going to try and experiment down the way to try and mitigate this, or there are other things. And they did bring it up, and I think it's an important thing. Pollution control is better than mitigating after. So I just wanted to make sure, not only that it says that there's a problem, we know there's a problem, but that we want to correct the problem.
Take some action.
Take some action, right.
Right now,
It should be put in. We haven't
haven't
met
discussed
after
it
that, but us who were at the meeting.
And if
we
this
really
is just an
should.
appendix,
We-
then we
no,
need to
we-
put it
No,
in
no,
our
no.
section.
No, there's two different things going on.
Yeah.
So I understand why that's confusing. So the DWSP2 paragraph is in with environmental resources and all that later in the comprehensive plan update. And the paragraph had already been put in the draft that you guys saw before this, where the town was saying they would comply with it, because that's all I could write at that time, that's all the information that I had, which is why when I was at the town board meeting, I was nearly begging to have more specifics about what were the issues and what were the objectives of the DWSP2, state drinking water protection program.
Drinking water source protection program.
Thank you. Thank you.
You wrote it.
What were the problems, so that I could put more specifics in the comprehensive plan update? So that's one of the things I need to do, is speak with Liz Moran, who I was told is the person to speak to that can give me some more verbiage. Because what I understand now, I looked at what looks like presentation slides, and it doesn't tell me much about the language or what the specific objectives are of the DWSP2. So I need to speak to her to see if I can get something more specific to plug in after the paragraph that's already in there.
She should be able to provide you with the draft plan that was given to New York State. They may even, at this point, be having final revisions on what will ultimately be the final plan based on the comments that they got from New York State, which they said were helpful but not particularly voluminous. They didn't get a lot back from the state in terms of items that they wanted to see changed or addressed, or things that they wanted flushed out, et cetera. So I think they were just pulling those last pieces together, and we're going to introduce it to the town board in the very near future.
So then I would assume the town board, so first the town prepares it with its consultants, then it goes to the state, and then it comes back to the town board,
To
and
be
then,
adopted.
but I'm assuming they have to go through a public process too, to adopt it?
That I would refer you to the town attorney on, but based on what was said at the last town board meeting, I'm not entirely certain that a public hearing is necessary.
Okay.
Because it's not changing town code.
But, so there's at least a draft that I could look at.
There is
pull
definitely, at the
some
very
things.
least, a draft
would
that
be
Liz should be able to
nice.
provide you if you reach out.
Yeah, okay, good.
In
Liz, are
fact,
we
I'll be
getting,
happy right now to send an email.
Liz, are we getting copies of this? Are you sending us copies about?
So I would have sent it out to you tonight, one, for the rule of don't send us stuff two nights before the meeting or the same night of the meeting, but also that I need to go through, after doing the macro changes, I need to go and proof this. So I didn't want to send it out to you yet, because it's so close, but not quite. And I'm not going to bother with the table of contents, because it's still kind of premature for that.
Okay.
And there'll be a list of appendices. But yes, my intention is to get it out to the group Friday. And then you can have a look at it.
So let's just. go
And I
back a
do have
second.
other issues you guys mentioned I want to go back to, so go.
So you're talking about it being in a different section that's kind of a shadow section, because you're waiting for something from the table. What did you say it's under?
It's under environment, honestly, I'm looking to track changes document, and the font is really small, and I don't have my reading glasses. So it's somewhere in, I think it's in the first environmental resources section. But you already had that text because it's not shown as new text in here.
The
So
DWSP2 is mentioned on page 34 of the most recent one that you sent to us without track changes.
Oh, yeah.
Right, but my question is related to that. We don't know what that says yet.
I can read it to you.
The SPC.
We don't know
But we
what
don't know the
DWSP2
DSP.
says yet.
No, I know that. That's
Right.
why I was just saying that I need to get more information to plug in.
So Liz, I've just taken the liberty of sending an email to Liz Moran and yourself, so there will be a thread so the two of you can facilitate that.
That's awesome.
Because if it's not something that's already been approved, if we're going to maybe see that draft and then take what we want from that draft and put it in versus just saying we're going to go by this.
Can we share that draft with the committee or not?
I was just going to say
That's
that the parts, the
Right.
parts that we want to
Right.
put in here, because I'm
Yep.
not sure which one's going to come first, whether we're going to be done or they're going to be done.
Oh,
And then we're referring to it as a done document and or process, and it's not done.
no. In the paragraph that I had written in the last version of things, the objective is to review, adopt, and fully implement New York State Drinking Water Source Protection Program. The draft plan must be reviewed by New York State. Let's see. Hang on a second here. I'm going to skip through some of the extra language. It includes proactive objectives for protecting the town of Fishkill's drinking water sources, including the implementation of Drinking Water Source Protection Plan. And I want to add some specifics to it. I know that when
That's probably where I'm going with that versus just kind of leaving it vague, like, oh, just, we want
That's-
to follow that. And we're like, well, let's get a little, we don't know what that is.
So you're in agreement?
Yes, I'm
with-
in
with
agreement.
adding,
that you
yeah.
Add more, that's what I'm saying. If we
But
get the
obviously, we can't
draft,
do
let's
that
say,
until we've got the draft or the final version that
Right.
will be submitted to the town.
And
well, we can just take parts out,
Right.
is what I'm trying to
yeah,
say.
I'm
We don't
going
need
to
to-
excerpt
yeah.
what are the main points.
Right, that we
And
want.
I do remember that when the DWSP2 team started working, they reached out because we were in the middle of adopting the aquifer protection, and they were happy about that. But I know there's more to do, so,
Yeah, I just want to cover our bases and not
Yeah.
leave something vague
yeah.
and put it in.
Yeah,
That's, I guess.
absolutely, absolutely. And actually, that's, the aquifer issue is really kind of, it's covered in here. It tells what's already been done. So part of the update is to say that the town adopted the aquifer map and law.
Liz, I hate to throw a monkey,
No, throw a monkey wrench.
but I know that the biggest problem with the salt being distributed is not coming from the town, it's a minor one. It's really from the state, when they're doing 84 and Route 9, and that's the one that surrounds our well over there on Snook Road, all right? And they have 82 and 52, and they're the ones who salt that. And that's the stuff that's, we do get some, all right? And,
I completely agree. And so if something comes along that can mitigate that from the state,
I know, like I said, the
right?
state
Because that is the
controls all this,
state.
and they're the
So
ones.
therefore, we're putting it on our plan that, hey,
Yeah.
we know we have a problem and you might be part of that problem.
Yeah.
That's why I don't want to leave it vague. I'd rather
Yeah.
put those kind of things in.
The
And
big
and since they
problem-
did bring it up and.
But we do have to be careful about saying things like may be a problem without getting specific. So that's another category where we have to do some coordination with state DOT in this case and find out. Maybe they have a plan that they're implementing to do X, Y, and Z, and we should know whatever that is.
Yeah.
But isn't that going to go into the DWSP too?
I don't know. It's gonna go-
Right, and by us saying we want to fix this problem of sodium getting into our drinking water and leaving it, not with a, oh, I definitely want a treatment plant to clean any of runoff water. No, we just keep it vague that this is what we want to do. We're having this problem and it needs to be addressed.
This is what we're doing.
This is what,
Can you help? Is that kind of where you're on?
no, we have a problem
Yeah.
and it needs to be fixed.
And we're doing our end, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully we're doing all
I mean,
right.
And maybe we can get some help from the state.
I'm not having looked at this document, but I'm guessing that that is a significant focus of the DWSP2.
Right.
And then
But it's
we're-
not done, so if we can put whatever we can, just to say
Right.
that we
Right.
want these things.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
I would like some, some
I mean,
specific
and
language.
one of the principal benefits of being a DWSP2 community is that it puts us in a stronger position when we're applying for grant funding.
Right.
Because that does end up resulting in the town getting sort of bonus points during the scoring process of those applications. But I would presume, without wishing to imply any type of legal knowledge, but I would presume that it would put us in a stronger position when we're having discussions with people like the state DOT about the fact that they may be applying too much salt
Right.
on our roads. We can say, hi, we're part of a New York State program to improve our water quality. Your actions are directly making it harder for us to achieve that goal, which is a state-implemented plan. Can you help us? It could theoretically put us into a better position.
And all I'm
To have
saying
that
is
conversation.
we're having a problem, let's put that we would like this problem corrected in this thing, so that it's another little bargaining chip.
Something
We're in
along
that
the lines
program,
of-
But also, it's in our overall town view that this is a problem that we would like to fix. Not in detail, just that it's a problem and we'd like to fix it.
Something along the lines of that consultation between the town
Whatever they
and the
can
New
do.
York State DOT and other agencies maintaining roads occur to examine this issue, and then a couple quotes from the DWSP2 about what their objectives are.
Yeah, that would inevitably include the Dutchess County, Public Works, which there's a fair number of county roads in the town as well.
Right.
So the whole thing really is a coordination issue. And I would think that since the state is overseeing this new program that they're trying to get municipalities involved in, including us, that the state is also making its own internal agencies follow those same principles, i.e. state DOT. That's what we need to find out, how that program is affecting, state agencies and how,
It should affect the town highway and how
Yeah.
they treat the roads and with what. And I think that may be part of the DWSP2.
so let's keep an eye on that.
Recommendations on
and look for
certain
that.
zones or something.
And now, since we finally have the beginnings of an implementation table with specific strategies, programs, and timeframes, I think we're going to be able to get more detail on all of those things, hopefully before this process is complete. Otherwise, the implementation table won't be that effective. It won't mean much unless there is some detail in it.
You mean actually putting in,
Whatever we can. Whatever we can put in the implementation table that is a specific strategy, program, solution,
Well, I think
and
That'd be-
timeframe.
if she gets a copy of the draft, she might be able to see what was said in that and
Yeah.
get some ideas from that.
Hopefully.
And then if we can take some of those ideas and put them in our plan, then it's kind of a two-pronged kind of approach, is where I was kind of thinking.
Yeah.
You know.
and the way that the implementation plan is structured is to summarize the different areas, summarize, but with some specifics, the different areas of things that need to be started, but referring back to the detail in that plan section. Right now, it's 5 pages. And I tried to include plenty of verbiage so that the general objective is clear, and also enough to differentiate between objectives that can have sort of a specific timeline, and others that are going to be ongoing.
Right.
So,
As well as who, what boards, agencies, committees can be involved in getting those things done. So I'm sure we'll all be looking forward to seeing
Yeah.
what that thing is going to look like.
and I'm just trying to think, there were other issues that came up Let me just get back to, see if there were other issues that I wanted to touch base with you all on. So there isn't any, I think I told you there's no need to attend the November 2nd, 2022 meeting. My understanding is, since the information didn't get in, the comprehensive plan update is not on that agenda. And what I'll do is get the materials in on the 9th.
So you're telling me they're going to do this at the second meeting in November?
So it would be the November 16th.
And I listened to their agenda, what they're going to have there. They're going to have all kinds of public hearings at that meeting?
No,
At least
no,
three?
no. The November 16th meeting will be the initiation of the review process. So basically, I don't believe we'll do much of a presentation, a brief presentation, because there was a decent one done, I thought, by everybody at the last meeting. The town board will hopefully vote to initiate the SECRA review
Okay.
and to adopt what's called a POSDEC, to say, we're going to do a generic environmental impact statement, and we're going to send this notice of positive declaration and tell you that there's a scoping session. They'll vote to adopt all those things that night and immediately get it out to all those agencies the next day. So people will be notified. In all likelihood, they'll set the scoping session and maybe, hopefully, a public hearing for a month from that date. So then we're talking the second meeting in December,
Okay, got you. 21st.
the 21st. And that'll be the scoping session, and hopefully the public hearing. We just didn't happen to discuss that, Stephen and I. Maybe you could bring that question back, because I think it's good to coordinate those, get all the input at once, get those processes started.
Okay. So Liz,
And so that'll be,
okay, so what we're going to do is you're going to send out this material, we're going to review it, or we're going to have a meeting
we can. That was what the question I was getting
before
to.
the town meeting, or not?
Well, what,
The 9th's open.
the 9th is open for us. The 9th is open for us to have a meeting.
What are we doing at that meeting if
That's
the town
what-
already has the information?
Exactly.
I know
So
exactly. That's why I said, what do we do?
we can have that meeting. There are other things I would like to discuss at that meeting. We're going to have to talk about how this is going to, it's going to have to be transmitted in some kind of electronic format, because the maps are appendices.
Okay, well, we started talking about having that electronic and putting it on a
Yep,
thumb
that all has to be
drive,
done.
And we'll talk to our planning board person and ask her to okay it and use
Yep.
her computer, which is a safe computer to be used here.
And that's to be able to have it if we want to meet on November 9th.
Okay, and then it can be all put up on the screen and,
Yes.
huh?
This is only us, November 9.
Let me just say something.
Yeah, this is our meeting for the
Yeah,
9th, yes.
November 9, okay.
So we can have that meeting on the 9th.
Okay.
Not sure what we're going to discuss, because we're hoping the town board will initiate this process. I would love your feedback. I want the committee's feedback on whatever the town board has. I would hold on to those comments, and they would be addressed afterwards. So they will, by 3 PM, I have to have whatever the town board is going to send out to agencies. I have to have that 3 PM on the 9th.
Okay, so what we're going to do is, regardless what the town board does, we're still going to meet on the 9th. We're
Sure.
going to discuss everything that you've submitted to us. We'll give you our input ahead
Yep.
of time or at that meeting. And that is it?
And then, hopefully,
No, I'm wanting to say something about this. So this first one, Beacon Hill, it says it was replaced 2020 to 2021.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say with what? So what size pipe, what distance?
I don't know who wrote that.
So
That
that was
is-
just, I went to the next page hoping for a
I
whole
know.
other paragraph, And so it says what the old district was,
Yeah.
But how, what's
and
the
then
length?
not what's new, what, you know, it tells me the pipe size,
No,
which
no,
is
and I
nice.
said, yeah, there's other things wrong with that, but she said she didn't write
I'm
it.
just,
So I don't even know what that, it's just that information?
It's
Is that when you said
information.
about the water?
Here's what happened. I did a write-up based on the notes I had from the meeting where he came and spoke to all of us. And I offered that as text that could be put into the comprehensive plan update. And Mike was very clear that it was his preference that this information be referenced and included as an appendix. That was what he asked. And I'm,
Because if you go to the next page, you have Brinkerhoff twice, two different, and that's why I stopped when she said,
okay.
and it's two different, and it's two different ones, so it gotta be something else. That's,
so can we, let's just keep
Yeah, let's
talking
go
about,
back.
so November 9th,
Yes.
we can
Meat.
so
chew
let's get
on,
all-
chew on
let's
this
get-
and,
okay,
and
so-
spit it out and get some comments.
Okay, so
Keep
you're
some
gonna,
comments
you're
going.
gonna
Friday.
You're gonna regurgitate everything you just said and send it to us, and then we're gonna look at it, and we're gonna discuss it on November 9th.
Yep. And now, the other thing
Now, you're gonna add something.
that I can do on November 9th is send you the SECR documents that I'm going to send to the town board.
Okay, but that, from what you just told us, is gonna be very light, because it's on a normal SEQA document. There's a lot of stuff that has to be filled in.
I bet it won't be so light.
It's not going to be so light. The
I mean,
scoping,
it'll have a lot of pages, but also.
the scoping outline is 4 pages long. A scoping outline is supposed to be saying this is what has to be in the EIS.
Okay.
I'm not going to write a voluminous EIS on this.
Okay.
It makes no sense, because,
So we're gonna
lot of
review
it's
that
in
too
here.
on November 9th.
because the point is to say what kind of effect it will have on the environment. And
Okay.
I feel like I'm going to be saying that a lot of these objectives will, result in improvements to the community and its resources and its land development. That's, very brief statement about what might be in any given section, so. So let's have a meeting November 9th.
Okay. And you want us to do all the homework ahead of time, so.
So I'm
Do your
gonna,
homework
I'm
ahead of
gonna
time.
get this, to you on, what is it, the 28th? Friday is the 28th?
Yes. Boy, I'm gonna be very busy in November.
Good for you.
Feel like
I'm
chef.
always busy.
And then what else do we need to talk about now?
Well, you put up all the maps.
Well,
Is there anything there you want to talk to everybody about?
I think the maps are in good shape.
Well,
The CPU objectives map was extended, oh, that's the other thing, is I have to add the sidewalks, the new sidewalks.
Yes.
That's one of the reasons I didn't give this
and
to you.
each of these maps going to be in the plan when it's done.
I'm going to get up and do the Vanna thing and take my
Okay,
microphone
Vanna.
with me.
Okay, we're in.
Fred, so you noticed that there was 2 pages that said Brinker Hall. Besides the first paragraph, the other paragraphs are the exact same thing.
All right.
All right, so just the difference really in the residents served is pretty much the only
I
difference
know, but it
between.
might have been another water district that almost does the same thing, so that's why I was.
Right, no, it says where they are and how many pumps that they have.
I wasn't at that meeting, so I can't.
It was a good meeting.
He's way ahead of you.
No, thanks.
How far can I go with this? Okay.
As far as you need, Ben.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm okay.
Okay. So I consider this map, which is comprehensive plan update objectives,
You
to
may want
be,
to turn to the other side, the way that map is, the
Thank
way the picture is.
so this is what I would consider to be our first map.
Vanna White.
Comprehensive plan update objectives. And I think I've shown you all this before. The sort of peach-colored lots are part of the large parcel analysis, which is a pretty important core part of the plan. The Railroad comes in from East Fishkill and goes all the way through. And then the green area, the green highlighting on the railroad is former Beacon Line potential rail trail. Let's see, the red lines are areas of traffic congestion and safety concerns, so I-84 near the ramps, Route 9 near I-84, quite a bit of Route 52 from the Triangle intersection on through the village and continuing almost to the border with 84, and then another area of congestion in the middle of the village of Fishkill along Route 9.
And then you got
And I'm just,
9D.
and then also,
9D.
yep, 9D. I want to call it a road name, though, instead of 9D.
Okay.
New York State Route 9D?
No, isn't there another road name?
9D.
No, that's just 9D.
Yeah.
Well, that one has 9D.
That's kind of sad. Right.
Yeah, right.
No, I mean, some of them do have like a local name and nobody knows the
Like,
route.
Route 9 is Albany Post Road.
It's interesting, because okay, well, anyway.
9 David.
All the purple areas
Okay.
are sidewalks,
Yeah.
proposed sidewalks. Wherever it's highlighted in purple. These are the new ones that came out of the last meeting. And I just want to say a quick word, and down here also. When I listed the sidewalks, I went kind of from east into the village, focused on Route 9, and then continued that way. And the reason that I did that is because of all these neighborhoods out here, and parks and other things, and access to the village. I just felt like starting from the east made more sense, and then dovetailing in Route 9, that's a pretty dangerous area, and needs to be filled in. So in case you're wondering how those are listed, and you want to comment on that, that was my logic.
Liz, did we show the existing sidewalks?
No,
Okay.
no, no.
It
But-
looks like there's some overlap with sort of pre-existing sidewalks where she has them.
Well, as I said, that we're not showing any existing sidewalks, it's just showing where we
No,
want them.
there's some overlap, but
Yeah.
Route 9
Well,
area.
Well, because we highlighted both sides.
Yeah.
But in the
It's
description,
okay, I
right.
mean, it's fine.
Yeah. There's, if you go online, there's a Move Duchess Forward website, and if you look up Move Duchess Forward Maps, you can go on and see the existing sidewalks, and you'll have a sense of the scale. So even if you're zooming in, it's this thin little yellow line. So if you're moving around the town and seeing that line, it kind of makes sense. And if you're putting it on this scale, there's going to be some overlap,
And
which
it's
is,
intermittent, some places have like a little section, and then there's nothing for miles.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. So putting it
I
on,
walked it.
just labeling that whole area, needing it, if it already got it, obviously you're not going to put another one on top of it.
but that's why the description in the plan is so specific. It may look like a boring thing to read, but the whole point of it is to say, these are the specific areas where we want to fill in the sidewalks, so that's real specific. Anyway, I don't know if there are any more questions about this map. Okay, and then the second map really is this proposed recreation zoning district map, which is from the 2009 plan. And we haven't done anything. We haven't added any highlights at all. But there is a very clear objective in the comprehensive plan update text that talks about reconsidering that. That was an objective in the 2009 plan, and as I've said, because this is a comprehensive plan update, we've noted in the comprehensive plan update text where things have been addressed and where zoning was changed, but in particular, nothing happened with this. So it's fair game, I think, to recommend that it be considered.
So we're recommending the rail trail be a recreational part of, should that be added?
That's not on here.
Well, I know it, but should it be?
It shouldn't be on that map.
No.
No, it's on here.
No, I understand that,
Right.
but But that's all the existing recreational areas you have on that map?
No, this is called a proposed recreation zoning district. And it's in the 2009 plan, and it's intended to be a zoning district that emphasizes recreation and open space type uses. It may be possible that by the time the town's ready to consider a recreation zoning district, they may think of it as more like an institutional or open space use type district, because that is the point. For example, this isn't necessarily a recreational area, it's really kind of recreational and cultural, but it has kind of a campus type design. This area here, that's a private camp, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
that's the,
And so in other communities I've worked in, sometimes somebody wants to come in, you'll get a church group that'll come in and they'll want to do a whole master plan to upgrade all their buildings, expand how many campers they can have, things like that. And so you want the kind of zoning that allows you to look at that and try to keep it as kind of an open space type of use, a campus style type of use that depends on.
you're saying that was in the '09 plan?
This was in the '09 plan called a recreation zoning district.
Okay, and the town did not do anything with it?
And the town didn't do it, but I think it's worth it for the town to consider some kind of zoning that would be appropriate to keep these things in their open space
Because
context.
ultimately, the concerns haven't changed.
Right.
Yeah, if anything, they've probably gotten
They've gotten
more
more
intense.
so, yeah. Yeah.
That's why I think the term conservation zoning district is what I was suggesting we put in our
Yeah.
draft plan. And it's a little bit more broadly encompassing than a recreation district,
Yeah.
because there, for instance, Stony Kill Farm is really not so much recreational, it's more educational and
Yep.
agricultural for that matter, but it's really open space, that's the key to it. And
Yep.
all those parcels are open space types of properties.
Right.
Jonathan, you're saying we should put that into our plan?
It's in it.
It's in
It's
it.
in-
You've already
it's-
stated that in the plan.
It already says conservational plan?
Conservation zoning district is the
Yeah, I think-
recommended title.
The area is the same from the old one, we're just changing the name, I believe is.
And with a different kind of focus, so, just going back to the camp, a lot of these, whatever the group is, they're typically nonprofits, so they'll want to operate in the summer, but they may want the ability to have other people come in, other groups come in and hold a retreat and use their facilities.
Is that the
and-
Fresh Air Fund you're
That is the
referring
Fresh
to?
Air Fund.
Yeah, they do that.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot
We've
of them
held
do,
events there,
right,
so.
exactly. And
Yeah.
even the religious groups
Yeah.
will do the same thing, because it helps them with the upkeep and being able to provide better facilities.
So
for
the
their-
idea of a conservation zoning district or a recreation zoning district, whichever you want to call it, is not at all to preclude what the current users are using it for, because those are all good open space uses.
Yep.
But if in the future, someday, something happens where they're not able to retain ownership or keep it going, and that could very well happen with Stony Kill Farm as well, but certainly with the private owned parcels, then there are some limitations on densities that could be built on there, residential densities in particular, still allowing housing units, but not to the degree that they are now in the
Right.
current zoning.
And
A lot of
maybe-
those parcels are currently either R40, which is 1 acre zoning.
Less than
or-
1 acre.
Or R4 acre, which is 4 acres, which is better, but still, I think we could do better than that.
Yeah. I mean, it would be sad if they could no longer afford to keep and utilize this site, to have it just become a residential subdivision, so it's a way of trying to, retain that style, that type of use.
Yeah,
If it
since
does
it's up
come-
on the mountainside, it would also be a blight, just
Yeah,
to see.
right, so
And
it-
I've seen it so many times that has actually happened, where you have this nice mountainous
People
area
dying.
with a lot of trees, and all of a sudden, something happens, and all of a sudden you got just a hillside full of houses or condos or something, and it just,
Yeah. And if that does-
aesthetically where you
If that
live.
does happen, then there are provisions in a lot of the conservation zones that I've seen, and there are a few of them around the state. We wouldn't be the first here, to incorporate mandatory clustering provisions to, still allow residential development to occur at a lower density, but to avoid sensitive parts of the site like steep slopes and ridge lines and those types of things, certainly wetlands as well.
No, Liz, I'd like a little clarification, because at the October 19th meeting, 19th, last week, when you were involved with the presentation to the board, one of the things that was discussed was, and I'm not remembering the term exactly, but a more realistic evaluation of a parcel's full developable size. For instance, say there's a 100-acre parcel, but there may be 20 or 30 acres of that parcel which aren't properly suited to development. Is that sort of what you're talking about there, where
Yeah.
you might sort of exclude those 20 to 30 acres from a total calculation? Because a lot of times I think what we would see would be someone would say, well, there's a 100-acre parcel here, and we could fit X many units into it, but let's cluster it together because these 20, 30 acres aren't suitable.
Yep.
Maybe to exclude those 20 to 30 acres from the total calculation, which then reduces the density of
Yes.
the resulting development. Is
Yes.
that the same thing you're talking about?
That's right, that's part of
Okay.
it, that's part of it, yes.
Yeah, but that's just.
But that could be in other zoning districts
yeah,
too,
right,
not
right.
just,
But
Yeah,
it's
I-
particularly relevant to this.
Right, definitely
document.
relevant to this, but, yeah, we were talking about the other, I believe you were talking about the other sites that you had found, and then it gave us a description of.
Yes.
I was just trying to make sure that I was connecting the dots correctly with what you were saying and what was discussed at the town board meeting last week. That's all.
Couldn't you
think so.
possibly put some deed restrictions in from the ownership presently?
Deed
That
restrictions.
future development of such could not even take place?
you mean,
Well, we can't do deed restrictions.
No, whoever's the owner of the property could, no?
well, the owner
They can
could
always put their own deed
voluntarily,
restrictions in.
right.
I'm not hearing you. Sorry.
I'm just saying, we don't do deed restrictions, but the owner can always put in their own deed restrictions as long as it's legal.
Isn't that, Stony Hill already kind of operates like
That's
that,
what-
doesn't it?
that's correct.
So what we're doing is we're just trying to hedge our bets by making a different kind of zoning. So if they don't decide to, it limits what can go there.
Sure, no, understood.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be great if they just put the deed in and we wouldn't have to do any of that, but.
Take all our way, our
Yeah.
efforts here.
So,
Well, I'm sure the planning board has, if there are sensitive lands, the planning board can ask, I guess, for protections, depending on what the applicant is willing to do.
Yeah, but I think the point in the comprehensive plan policy guidance would be, don't leave certain things in the hands of the planning board, make it across the board mandatory. And so for
Yes.
instance, deducting state and Army Corps of Engineer wetlands from your calculation in a cluster development would be a good example of that.
so do we have that written in there as a?
I don't know
I'm
if it's-
pretty sure we
Yeah,
do.
I think maybe we could get more specific about it
Okay.
if we need to.
Yeah,
but-
because if we can give the zoning board and planning board more teeth, where, is what I think you're trying to get at, right? That they don't have to fight that fight if it's written in.
I'll double check.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say right now there are some provisions that generally address that in the current code, but they're more like recommended guidelines, not, not mandates.
Yes, because Greg brought it up, but Liz, you had brought it up at the planning board meeting about the wetlands being kind of our buffer for floods. And since they are, last week. kind of
Town board,
the town
okay,
board
thank you.
meeting. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
No, it's okay.
And that, yes, they're kind of getting inundated as development has gone on, I think because of some of that, where they're just dumping everything onto, well, I can't develop it, so I'm just going to dump all that water into it. And I think they are kind of showing, getting closer to the breaking point. So if we can strengthen them like he's suggesting.
Yeah,
I
let's
think it's
take a
very
look and make
important.
sure we have
Where do
I
we,
thought I put something in there about strengthening
where does
deductions, but let's
the
make
town
sure.
fall with pervious surfaces and retention ponds or gardens along those things to try and,
All the design, there's a lot of great design standards in there, I just don't know.
but are they just standards, ideas, or are
Well,
they, because,
there's-
you know, I live over on Wheaton, and we just get flooded now, and that never, you know, people from living there for 40 years, and they never had water in their basement. Now their basements are pools. So I know it's been an increasing issue.
That little stream is causing you a problem?
Are you kidding me?
That goes right by my office.
Which way? Are you dumping, you're dumping those bears in that water, and that's what's making the water go?
No. That's in my office, not my house.
So I definitely know that the residents are very concerned about those kind of things, and yes, the waterways and the wetlands are very important, and if they're getting overused,
It needs to be dredged.
you're talking about the stream. I'm talking about the wetlands, because the wetlands are
Okay,
very
the stream
important,
better-
and they'll need to be dredged too if the same thing happens. As they get flooded, they fill up. It's, you know, nature. So to protect them as best we can, but I also thought about the other mitigating things that I know I've come across in the past, which is pervious surfaces to help with retention of water. The city does the rain gardens, which also do that, retention ponds and things of that sort, and I didn't know where the town fell on that. Because I know some towns will make it mandatory over a certain size, you know, because water has become such an issue, runoff water.
And I keep looking at Jonathan because I don't do planning board
And that's actually
reviews,
kind
so
of
I
who I'm
don't-
looking at as well, you know.
But you do code work, though, so.
Yeah,
No, those are all good questions, and I think we do have some probably generic types of statements in the CPU, the plan update, dealing with things like green infrastructure and rain gardens, and I think even the code has some, you know, general standards in that, and of course, there are some very specific stormwater pollution prevention plan requirements in a section of the code that deals specifically with those stormwater issues. But again, I think that's something we can look at in our plan, you know, language and make sure that it's as strong as we want it to be.
yeah, I mean, I guess a suggestion I would make, while you're reviewing, instead of starting from page 1 and going through to the end, if you have a specific area of interest, go right to that and read it with a fine-tooth comb. And, you know, there are a few sections on environment which I almost feel like
They
there's
can
some,
fit in.
there's some overlap,
Well,
but.
I didn't want to add it if we already have it, and then I
No,
guess
no,
that's
no,
where my
we
question
can
would come to.
add, yeah, specific strategies and sharpen those. So when I think of goals as a larger thing, objectives is a little more specific, and strategies is right down to do this in the code. So, I mean, I would just encourage, you know, the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee, just make the comments and we'll figure out how,
Where to
where to
stick
put
it
them.
in.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was starting to get to my comment dealing with the new implementation table that we have now, the beginnings of. But that's the kind of place where we could add some specific statements if we don't feel that, you know, they've been addressed quite strongly enough in other parts of the plan. And then if necessary, go back, put it in the implementation table, and then go back and strengthen wording, expand it a little bit more.
I guess my suggestion would be to have specific language in the plan and in the implementation plan to be able to refer back to.
Yeah, I'm thinking of
Those.
of the table more as a tool for us to figure out if what we wanted in the plan language is strong enough or complete enough.
Right.
So that's what I'm going to do, because I've done a lot of reading of the plan draft, is go to the implementation table that I haven't seen yet and say, I've been thinking about solution X, and I don't really know where in the plan it is. Let's put it in the table and then go back to where we think it might have been in the plan, and whoops, I don't see it there.
Yeah, that's
Let's
an
add it.
interesting approach. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Another question off the top of my head. Zoning and planning. Do they cover light pollution?
Yes.
Okay. So that was a question. I was like, you know.
Even I can answer that.
The new guy.
I'm the new guy on
The
the
new
plan.
guy, yeah. You know, because she had talked last week about some of the
It's weird.
the lands that should be, had been developed and can be redeveloped as being more industrial. And of course, when you kind of have a mixed areas where you border housing, you know, you tend to run into that kind of problem.
As a matter of fact,
And-
I'm
and
seeing,
noise,
yeah, I'm
but-
seeing now that even what we have, the county is now, when it goes to the county, they're telling
They're
us
doing-
to bring it down.
Bring it down.
More than what we have. So,
You know, and it affects people, so.
no,
Yeah, the town board did recently, when certain sections of the code, of the zoning code were updated this past year or two. There's a whole new section, which Liz worked on, of lighting standards, which are a lot more specific and strong than they ever were before.
Good.
lighting is done.
Okay, then what about noise?
What?
What about noise pollution?
Yes, noise is in there.
The noise is in there, good. We got Liz away from her maps.
No, I was looking for the lighting thing. If, there is an objective, and it is,
Objective 7.
yeah, hang on, let me just find out what section it is. I'm glad you found it. Oh, it's in the whole section on better site design.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the language goes something like this: the objective is develop and enforce standards for lighting to enhance community character. And then under it, it says, the code of the town of Fishkill, chapter 150 zoning, includes design guidelines and article Roman numerals, including provision with detailed standards and requirements for lighting at section 150-149 and 150-152. So in that particular case,
Didn't you
that
write
was in a-
those particular sections?
no,
Okay.
no, I didn't. No, they were already there.
Oh,
This,
okay.
in this particular, this is an example of the 2009 plan said, do this, and the code was revised since the 2009 plan, so I've acknowledged that in here, that got done. That's done, what do we do next? So
Okay.
light pollution is in there.
Liz, we talked, I believe, last year. We talked about the internet,
About what?
the internet a little bit. And I don't know if we, because it keeps changing. You know, it used to be big towers. Now it's becoming with the 5G.
Oh, we're talking about cellular.
Cellular.
So
Yeah.
you're talking about the,
Yeah.
I think there was actually a dust-up last year, probably. about
Oh,
this
it was
time of year.
more than a dust-up. You
Okay.
have one of the swankiest telecommunications laws I've seen
So-
Yeah.
in Dutchess County. It's a very proactive, it includes the original telecommunications requirements and standards that were already in the code, and they're beefed up a little bit, but it also dives into the smaller facilities that can be like,
Right, put out on telephone poles and things like that.
and so, yeah,
That was implemented, so that was good.
yeah, that's been adopted, that's implemented.
So that's probably the opposite of what you were looking for, though, Fred.
No. And the other thing is, I know we don't have it in there because of the new codes coming down regarding the 2035 with the energy and no electric, you know, all electric, everything new has to be electric, and are we going to have enough stations to charge cars up, and how are they going to handle that?
You do have an objective about having more EV stations
Well,
and,
well,
It's in here.
again, I got to go back and read everything and put it all back
and
together.
that was in there before. It's brief. I
It's-
think it's.
It's on
hang
page 26.
Well,
What is it?
26.
26.
I'm just fighting the new codes that are coming down, said everything has to be electric, and then how do you do electric when, I know I have a generator to back up my house, and I can't use my backup generator,
Was it-
quote, in the future.
Under
because it's going
objective 9 on page 26.
And, battles that are coming, and they haven't solved that problem, unless they put everything underground. All utilities have to be underground.
And then you get a lot of loss.
And then you got, well, look, all right, tree goes down, I lost my electricity, and I don't, and I can't turn on my generator.
Parks. Get your candles out.
How'd they do it in the old days?
Hey, we froze. We put,
Don't you have a lantern?
look, I still have the change for my car, the tires.
They work.
Yeah.
They work.
They still use it in the city.
Yeah, the buses.
Yeah.
All the buses have them. It's a different style.
I can't
It's on
find
a
it,
big
but it's in there.
wheel, and they
Can you-
just throw out.
You're looking
So
on
as
your
it-
phone,
as-
bless your
As the wheel
heart.
goes this way, the chain goes this way. So it's always underneath the tire.
But certain towns outlaw fireplace, outdoor fire.
I can't find
Places,
it.
the outdoor.
Are we?
I know you said page 26,
Yeah,
I don't think so.
and I know it's in there, and I'm
Hey,
just
did we
not.
Jonathan, did we outlaw
Can you look
furnaces
up the-
outside?
Sure.
Wood burning furnaces?
Furnaces, that's different than
I
a
don't
wood.
think so.
Okay, because some of the towns have done that.
Oh,
I
no.
don't think I've seen anything.
Forget it.
We're talking
You
about.
didn't have your fire.
EV.
That's what I thought he was talking
It's,
about.
it's, the EV thing is in there, and, Teresa said it's on
It's just a one-sentence thing. It says, consider requiring fiber optic cable for internet and EV stations in new or redeveloped non-residential sites. That's the only thing that I've seen.
Found it. 26.
Thanks.
I'd like to see everything put together, I'll start reading it again.
Oh, now I
Catch up on
find
all the
it.
stuff that
Exactly what you said.
There's a lot in here.
No, I'm just trying to think.
I wonder if we could use.
I don't think there's any reason to talk about the maps really anymore, because the first map, the large parcel one, and the second map, that's from the 2009 plan, those are things that show objectives. The other maps, the one with the green area over here, that is the Aquifer Protection Overlay Zone, and that is already adopted. There is a historic resources map, but the map itself doesn't have any, it's just to show resources. It's not a map that somebody looks at. There's no overlay. It's not like that. That's a site-by-site. The historic resources map was just a resource map to encourage coming up with the historic resource regulations, and those are based on online, do you have any archaeological or cultural or historic sensitivity? The wetlands, floodplains, and water bodies map is a helpful resource for knowing where all of those resources are, and that's, I can get up again and point to it, but it's the one that has the village kind of enveloped in sort of bluish areas there. And then the community resources map has quite a bit of green and some, which is the sort of green strip is really a lot of open space area, including all of the mountainous area. The sort of peach-colored area, again, is the camp. And then on the community resources map, if you look up high, you're seeing Stony Kill Farm. It's kind of a different color of green. And then the town of Fishkill zoning map, which is kind of right in front of me, very many colors. It's the existing zoning map, most recently updated in 2018, August 2018, and it's annotated. This was my attempt to try to look at what are existing possible multifamily or other redevelopment sites, but really focusing on multifamily. And the annotations basically indicate that almost all of the multifamily zoning districts are already developed with some sort of higher density housing already. And
Which is a problem in the town.
which is a problem because there is a need for potentially more residential, areas that are zoned properly for residential development. And I think, Jonathan, you've remarked that there is a huge amount of non-residential, some industrial and,
Yes.
You know,
Yeah, I even termed it an imbalance between the amount of land left for residential versus commercial development, way in favor of the commercial side.
John, when the Gap goes out of business,
Yes.
can that be made into a big apartment complex?
No, they're
Very
too large to
big.
fail.
Huh?
They're too large to fail.
Well, that,
I mean, it's a good question that when you allow
Groceries
and,
are town-
when you allow and approve facilities like that, when you allow and approve facilities like that, or even in the case of one about a third of the size which we have before us at the planning board now, what happens with those kind of sites if they don't, last
Pan
more
out.
than
Yeah.
15, 20 years or whatever? Does it become the same as the former Duchess Mall, become a
Yeah.
blight again, or?
Former prison.
And so in many ways, that really should influence what the current zoning of large parcels is, which is why there are a lot of suggestions in there for the town board to take a look at those remaining large parcels and make sure that we're comfortable with what types of uses are allowed in those parcels.
And that section also kind of dives right into the issue with, and the committee brought this up early on, the issue that even the concept of doing some kind of mixed use or various types of housing, whether it be apartments or condominiums or something of a higher density, the issue is the lack of public water supply or systems and wastewater and systems. And the other thing, this may have happened in the town of Fishkill, I'm not sure. There was a time when a lot of the school systems were burgeoning with kids, and I'm going to go ahead and say that that was in the 60s and 70s and maybe a little bit in the 80s. And towns felt an urge to try to increase the amount of what are called ratables. In other words, non-residentially zoned and non-residentially developed lands that would bring in tax revenue without adding another child to the school system. And now that urge to have a lot more non-residentially zoned and developed land is kind of getting a second look, because I don't know what's happening exactly in the school districts in and around Fishkill, but I know that in and around Kingston, there are elementary schools closing, there's consolidation of the upper elementary grades with the middle school.
People are leaving New York City.
And I guess,
But-
that might be
so-
happening too, but there are
so but-
fewer children being brought.
So this is my question along those lines.
Mhm.
So back in the 60s and 70s, Fishkill wasn't as developed as it is now.
Right.
Okay, now there's a lot more people here, and there's proposed to be a lot more. The Toll Brothers, I believe, are building how many more? So even by the averages, if you're having less children, you have more people here.
Yeah.
So how do we find a census to find out where we sit with that?
Just studies done on that.
Okay,
All right,
so
and everybody who's coming to the planning board tells us how many, what they're building.
But that's why it would be really good to hear from the school
the
districts
school
directly.
district, because
Yes.
they must
That's where
know.
the
So I
information
have a
is.
census, and it says there's 24,000 people here, and then it has it broken down, what age groups they are from the Census
Yeah.
Bureau.
Maybe they just don't want to respond until they run it up the flagpole to legal. Maybe could be causing the delay in reaction, if at all.
It's possible.
But it is very important because that would push which way we want to lean. Do we want to just keep it commercial? Because if we don't have the room in the school districts, or the infrastructure, or on the roads, then we might want to keep it businesses. Because those are the things that you do have to think about. They thought about it back then, we need to think about it now. Do we want to push towards them being more residents? What does more residents mean? More residents does mean more services that are needed. Water, sewer, roads, schools, emergency, fire department, first aid, that are, they're taxes. We pay for all of that kind of stuff. Whereas a business is a business,
Except,
Yes.
I think we do address this in the plan update a little bit, but maybe, again, we could get a little bit more detailed. Commercial development can be a range of things, and it doesn't have to be a big box store. It doesn't have to be a warehouse. It doesn't have to be, corporate types of uses, but it can be small businesses. It can be
Right.
Mixed use.
mixed use, right, exactly. So those are the kinds of options that I think we're trying to raise in the CPU. Maybe we need to get a little bit more into that.
Into what we would like to see if we do stay on that business side. The input we got from our questionnaire was that.
Yeah.
We want more kitschy kind of things, I think, like you see in Beacon along that strip, or in the Village, where you have that walkable shopping experience, that maybe eclectic kind of artsy, or, that they're not going to get online. People talked about like a Trader Joe's, which, again, falls into those kind of things. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Trader Joe, but what can we do to promote that kind, and that's what we want to see.
By the way, I think a new Trader Joe's just opened up in Yorktown.
Yorktown.
So
I was there earlier.
That's not close enough for me to go to.
Do you see the new subdivision that's been going in for the last 3 years up in 44, near Adams up there?
yeah.
And that's what you're sort of talking about? That
They're really
has,
cranking there.
what?
They're cranking.
Yep.
You got it, and
that in
they're
the
booked up. All right, and
Oh,
they're.
Yes, up on that hill, which was,
No, not
I,
on the, hey, it's right flat too.
yeah, okay.
I'm just talking, the whole area.
Are you referring to the old psychiatric center?
No, that's on Route 9. This is
No,
on
that's
44.
Hudson Heritage.
Adams. What's the name of
haven't
the
seen it.
complex?
Eastdale
Village.
There you go.
And they have stores and dwellings.
Right, and that's what I like
And
about it.
medical.
And Hudson Heritage is also, they have like a Main Street core
Yep.
that's all business
So ultimately,
and a
that's
ShopRite, but then a significant amount of the site is residential.
residential.
Because
Rentals.
if,
Rentals.
yep, rentals and some ownership units, but here's
You got
the,
that nursing home up there too.
Well, yeah, that's a little bit farther up.
Yeah.
yeah, that is farther up. But the thing is, if that developer came in and, he wanted to have a certain amount of high-density residential
Uh-huh.
there, because there's a market for it.
Right.
And if you're the person that owns that piece of land and you want it to be full a lot of the time, you're thinking in terms of gross leasable area. And so that's why mixed use can be a beautiful thing, because
Right.
if you've got a couple of empty stores, but most of your condominiums, or there's going to be a hotel there, if that's all full, you're still in good shape. So you have this constant trade-off, which is why on a smaller scale level, living over the store theoretically should be coming back.
Yeah.
But, and I have to say, sadly, in some of the communities I've worked in, asked about having an apartment,
Right.
doing the zoning to have an apartment over the store was kind of rejected.
Along those kind of things, that's what I had thought about with
And
the
I don't-
prison, which is kind of already a structure there with plenty of sewer, hookups and water within the building, right? Because they're all individual
Wait,
cells.
where's this?
The prison that they just shut down.
Yes, yep, sure.
Which would be a perfect area for a mixed-use kind of thing.
Like a Faneuil Hall food court? there has to be room for that somewhere.
You know?
I mean, I don't know, just saying.
You know, even small stores that you can open up, kind of like what they had at the Dutchess Flea Market kind of thing, where it's affordable enough and small enough that you just open it up on the weekends, store kind of thing. I don't know. Anyway, so finding out from the schools, hopefully where we stand with that would push. I think the mixed use is a nice idea. How do we put it in there?
Well, I think there's a pretty strong message in there about mixed use, but we can revisit it. Take a look. How does that show up? Does it show up enough?
Because you talked, we were just started this conversation with the parcels that we would like to repurpose, and that they are more business zoned versus residential.
The big one you have right now, of course, is Chevron Texaco.
You want to take this one?
No, he already took it. But again, you know, if you're asking for something that's going to be repurposed.
We would love to, but obviously there's problems with that. But so let's discuss the other one.
Well, it's them, not us. We're the ones that want to.
We would love to do it, I understand.
They're very stubborn.
Yeah.
And they won't deviate off it.
No.
And they've held that position for quite a long time.
I'm sure they're going to hold it until
Do
someone
any of
holds
you
their feet to the
remember
fire.
Texaco being open?
So,
I think Hudson Heritage over in Poughkeepsie, there was a certain amount of back and forth about what the developer wanted and what the town wanted before everything moved forward.
Which one you talking about?
Hudson Heritage, which was the former Hudson River Psychiatric Hospital.
Oh, yeah, forever.
Right.
But that was a gigantic.
And they had and they had a few, I was involved in the review, and they had a few different people go through until they had the most recent person.
Yeah, well, in that case, it was owned by the state, correct?
Yes.
This is owned by an S&P 500 company.
Right.
that's,
right.
Right.
You know, $44
It's big
billion market cap.
Yeah. But what about our other sites that were identified by Jonathan? You know,
I actually missed that meeting, so I don't really have that list.
No, there's a-
It's in the
There's a
email.
whole-
It's in the plan.
It's in the
Oh, it's in-
plan, too,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it's in the plan. There's a whole mix of,
There's a
you know,
list of
parcels.
Yeah, okay, I started going through them.
Right.
Some are state-owned, some are privately owned. There's, you know, really,
It's a mixed bag, but they are the largest parcels.
Yes, but then we talked about water and sewer
Correct.
after that, and then that knocked out a lot of the things for that, because you didn't have the water or sewer to do any massive development, because you can't put an apartment complex up easily with a septic tank.
So what is the issue with Glenham, the Chevron? Is it they don't want to finish their remediation, or?
Neighbor. No,
I'm just curious.
yeah, no problem. I've talked to them directly. I bypassed the broker, they're useless. Whoever's coming in needs to clean up. They're not gonna spend a dime. It's all on you. So trying to get an understanding of what the total cleanup's going to be, and I don't care how many credits or how much New York State's gonna back somebody or developer coming in. And I don't even know how many developers there have been there to assess the issue. They've lost. They'll try to tie up the property, get in there, try to assess things, and the cost is so dramatic. I think I had this conversation with Jonathan. Even if they gave you the property and wrote you a check for $30 million, it's still a raising of the eyebrow on whether somebody's going to move forward or not, because the contamination is just so dramatic. Now, could you pay? One of the main reasons they just took down the top parts and left the foundation is because if they pulled up those foundations, there would be really,
They would
it'd be
have to
really
do
bad
something.
shape.
They can't be held accountable.
So as far as anybody dwelling over there, and forgive me, as much as I'd love to see it, and I would, it's just practicality.
It
I live
probably
next
has to
door to
do-
it, and,
Right.
I'm not I knew what I was getting into when I bought the place. I'm not complaining, I still love where I live, but going forward and in the practicality thing, they're not gonna move off of that. However,
That's super fun though, right? Not
yes,
brownfield.
correct, it's a
so
super
it's
fun.
it's a
I don't think
different
they use the
level.
term
It's a
anymore, do they?
brownfield.
Yes, they do.
They do.
They do, yeah.
So But if you look at the projects they've done worldwide, I mean worldwide, Brazil and all over, I mean, they've spent way more probably than would be needed here. They've destroyed more stuff than, but they've gone back and mitigated why they are leaving this laying there. I don't have an answer for you. I wish somebody break rank in a sense, but the guy was bent on not moving. We're looking to do a land lease and take care of and monitor and do all the good stuff, but they wanted cleanup. They want it out. They just leave, but you guys clean it up. So
That's not going to happen.
That's not gonna happen. Who would take that?
The thing is also, state DFC is
No, because you would be
overseeing.
stuck with
It
it.
depends upon the price.
If
that-
someone else is gonna pay for it, yeah, but that's not,
Depends upon the price. If they don't want the land anymore and they want to give it away, somebody will go in and clean it up.
no. Listen to
That
what
was
he
yesterday.
said.
That was yesterday.
No, that's not gonna change, because you're stuck with that. Once you buy that property or take that property, whatever's there is yours now, not theirs.
no, it is theirs. Their name is on it as long as they're
They're
forever
gonna
infinity.
fight, they're fighting us, the government, to not clean it up. You don't think they're gonna fight whoever, they're just gonna give it to?
Well, whoever's got the biggest pockets, they're going
Right.
to fight but
Yeah.
their name will be on it is infinity,
But
unless they go bankrupt.
you know what I'm saying, like.
Which
yeah.
I've seen that done before too, where you see a company just go bankrupt after they contaminated all the entire, but anyways.
Well, state DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, is supposedly overseeing the whole remediation process, and they are, but it's going so slowly. I wish the state would get more proactive in causing the process to go more quickly, because a lot of the slowness, I think, as you're saying, implying, is on the part of Chevron at this point, just not really, I don't know, caring, maybe caring's not the right word, but not really wanting it to move that quickly.
Correct. They're dragging their feet, and they're only appeasing the state right now as they go along. They're just dragging. The reports they give out on Glenham Mills is just a load of crap. When I spoke to the guy directly, I said, everything you're telling me right now, why aren't you putting that in the report? And he goes, well, it's, that they're just keeping people appeased. The file they sent me that I signed off on is breathtaking. I can't even share it with you, but it's just breathtaking. That's why I feel so strong about what I just stated earlier. That's all I can say. It's
So
unfortunate.
anyway, we're, from our committee's viewpoint, we do look at long-term. I don't know how long-term we're talking about for that site. So if there's any consolation, someday something will happen with that site.
I agree. Will it happen during my lifetime? I don't know.
None of us know.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, I feel very strongly about, it's my neighborhood, it's the town of Fishkill, it's for the benefit. I don't have an answer at the moment, I know.
A good answer, anyway.
Yeah, good answer, exactly.
And the state's probably allowing themselves to get their feet drugged because they have so many other sites that they still have to clean up too. They're not the only ones.
Listen, don't get me wrong, I'm not giving up the fight, I still poke the bear.
Yeah.
I remind them I'm still here, by the way, because those guys, they swap seats all the time, and there's always a different name after, 5, 7 years, basically, but I find them,
Pick your battle. Which one you're gonna fight.
Keep at it.
yeah, I will.
All right, so
We're all set for the next meeting.
I think we're all set. I get the,
So if we can, so meeting on the 9th to review our kind of final notes.
What we've been
before-
given.
Right, and then the 16th is
The town meeting.
the town board is going to just look at what we're sending them, right?
We're going to go with
Let-
an
let me-
initial review.
let me, yeah.
Go ahead.
Let me go step by step. On Friday, I'm going to send out to
Right.
you both the tracked changes and the clean version of what will ultimately be given to the town clerk next Wednesday, with all the other secret documents, so that the town board can consider it.
And that's on the 16th, that they're considering.
That's on the 16th, when they'll consider
And
that.
then when is the public hearing?
And then, wait, let's go in order. So we're going to have a meeting on the 9th.
Right.
So even though I've given this off to the town clerk and it's kind of static, we can still get together on the 9th and talk about it. You know, what else do we need to tweak here? Because the comment process goes on. It hasn't even started yet, but you guys will have a bite. You guys and gals, you folks will have a bite, and I want to hear all your comments. And so as soon as I issue this to you guys and then turn around and give it to Becky next Wednesday, it's kind of static for a while, and I look at this as a process where we'll be collecting comments for a while. Okay, so I suppose that because whatever I give to the town clerk is the document that the town board is going to act on and send out to all the agencies, it's going to stay that way for a while, but I can still take comments from the committee and hear what you have to say. Because ultimately, when they do hold that hearing on December 21st and the scoping session on the 21st.
So that's like 3 days before Christmas, right?
Yeah.
When is Christmas? 25th?
25th. Every year.
Yeah, pretty much, usually.
I don't follow. But, so is that a public hearing?
that?
That is going to be in my recommendation, and
Scoping
a
session.
scoping session and a public hearing.
Okay. I mean, that's going to be tough. I would think that probably the week of that major holiday might not be well attended.
It also is worth noting that the first January meeting would not be a
Yeah.
prudent
It's tough.
time
It's
for
tough.
this to be a matter for the town board because it's
Hard
real.
timing, yeah.
Okay, so, but let me say another thing. So, on the 21st, it would be scoping session and the first public hearing. And then I would think that the second public hearing would probably be the second meeting in January.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be my
January
guess.
18th.
So January 18th. And
So we'll have a lot of nice comments on the 21st. Everyone's full of holiday cheer. And then the second
And then
one in
not so
January,
nice.
everybody's gonna be depressed.
And you're
And we're gonna get the grumpy
more.
ones. I'm gonna miss them. You guys enjoy them.
Liz?
I mean, the alternative is to push it back into January and February.
I don't think.
I don't
that would be a very
see.
popular move.
I don't think there's ever going to be a good time to do this, and if you start getting into spring, there's always going to be a holiday, and I don't know.
Is there
What?
a reason,
Yeah.
we have to meet?
I think we're making advancements, we'll get lots of comments, there'll be more revisions. What?
Is there a reason we have to meet in December? Our last meeting, until something comes back to us?
We might not have to.
Do we have to meet it ever again? Because
Well, that's why-
now it's turned over to the town board.
This is why I was saying to you that we can meet on the 9th.
We're meeting on the 9th.
Okay, so that's good. But yes, we can start looking at that schedule because we're at a point now where we are in the public, we're climbing into the public review process. And so there's going to be lots of input from, maybe from the committee, but also from other people, and there are going to be more revisions heading into mid-January where maybe something will be adopted.
I know something. that
Tell me
we're
something that you know.
forgetting,
Yes.
Fred. Where's our photos for this?
Well, that was the first thing that I mentioned is that Jonathan sent a whole bunch of photos.
Where are
And
the
if-
photos from everyone else, is what I want to know.
Okay,
Well, I sent a whole list of,
you
Not-
sent
not
a
a
list.
list.
On, I thought.
I'm not talking about a list of photos, I'm talking
Yeah.
about actual photos.
And the thing is, if you go online and grab some of the stock online, it has a funny, like, watermark in it. So anyway,
well, okay, but that's something else. But again, I'm just trying to see what we're doing as a committee.
so if you have
Us as a committee, we have to pick those pictures.
photos that you've taken and that you can send to me as a JPEG, or I think it's a PNG, but I like JPEGs in that format.
Yeah, JPEGs are good.
if there's something you have in mind, take a picture and send it to me by email as a JPEG.
Okay, but I'm still saying.
JPG.
Okay, but it doesn't take us to meet as a committee.
Nope.
Oh, we gotta pick those pictures.
But we
It's
have to
like
take
putting a
a-
scrapbook
I
together.
mean,
Let's have a
anything,
committee go out with our cameras together.
That's us,
No.
we do a committee. We
I mean,
can we take a picture?
you know, ultimately, maybe it would help if I can share a link.
So
your
selfies don't
photos?
count, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't do it because I'm not.
Are they selfies of you? Yes, we needed them in
Capable
there.
of that, but you are.
I'll need a pano.
But here's a thought, though. I think there's a role for the committee as the actual document evolves, because it's going to evolve, you know, as the town board is doing the public review process and the seeker and the public hearings and all that. There's still going to be a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff going on with the document getting better and better and better. And I think we should have a role in how that happens. So it may not be meeting a lot, but several more times, I think.
Right, I think you still should be meeting. And,
On November 9th, we can decide if we need to have
Yeah.
another meeting,
Yep.
you know, in the next few weeks after that.
Yeah, one step at a time.
Play it by ear.
And I
Something always
prob-
comes up.
I
I know you've been
I
very-
just don't want to have a meeting for
Every
I would like to make
meeting
sure we
with
have
Fred.
something to do.
well, agreed. Agreed.
Yes. So
I think
again,
you'll have
if-
something
yeah,
to chew
again,
on
well,
for November 9th.
No, no.
And then we'll look at what's next.
We're meeting November 9th, talking about into December or January,
Right,
all right? If the town board is going to now have to do their thing, and we have to sort of wait for the town board to do their thing before we do something again, all right? And if the town board is going to have 2 open houses. all
No,
right?
they're not having
Public
open
hearing-
houses.
Open hearings.
Yep.
Okay? No?
Yeah.
public hearings.
Public hearings.
Yeah, not open houses.
I don't mean, I meant
Okay.
public hearings.
Public
all right?
hearings.
We really don't have, and they're gonna give feedback, then we don't really have to meet again until all those 2 public
We're
hearings
not
are
going to meet
done.
unless we have a purpose.
Correct.
I'm gonna,
And if they have the feedback, then we can have a meeting.
what he said,
I think we should just meet.
For the hell of it. For the hell of it. We're going to meet at Fred's
Fred
house.
can bring the food.
potluck, snacks, and drinks.
No, Fred can bring the
I
food.
don't care if we have.
That's when we
I
can
think
take
we should
selfies
just
and
go.
send
Yeah.
I gotta put time aside for this.
Liz, I don't know if this is under our purview, but this needs to be turned into a map like this. These districts need to be mapped out. Do you understand what I'm trying
I
to say?
do understand what you're saying.
You might not be able to do that
I'm
without
not
that
gonna
guide.
map them because I'm guessing that if I map them, I'm gonna find out that a map exists somewhere. Now, I will tell you,
I thought he was very clear there was none.
yes,
There is now.
I don't know.
Oh.
The only time I have seen a map of water districts was one that, I'm gonna go blank. When I went to do the aquifer map, was it the assessor's office? Somebody had gone in, I have to look, but they had gone in under GIS information and patched together
Right.
water district map, but otherwise, it doesn't exist. That's definitely a huge job,
Okay.
so I can tell you that, not likely that, it could be an objective to do a water district map, but I can't picture, because there isn't a map, there isn't,
I just know forever ago before the
I agree that
GPS
there's.
map, we used to have it was a book of maps, I can't even remember. And that's what we used to do, is we
Oh, so you know
That
how to
could
do
be-
this, is
that-
what- is that what
Fred,
you're saying?
That could be our next meeting.
Did you
We
just
could-
say you know how to do
get
this?
together with a bunch of crayons.
Go knock on doors and say, do you have sewer?
Hang on a second.
But somewhere along the way, that definitely needs to be done.
I'm
where
gonna
these
start with
districts
them,
are.
because
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna send a GIS person to try to figure out how
Yeah.
to do that. And I actually did ask her about that.
yeah, generally, it's gonna be a street map, and then you're just gonna write the highlighter up the street that it runs up to, and, you know, and then you kind of stick them together.
Let the town board hire someone to do it.
And you can oversee.
That could be an objective to have, a water and sewer district map.
Because it's very important.
It's in the
It
package.
is.
Put it in your packet.
I'm just saying it's not going to be part of the CPU. It could be an objective. This should be done.
Because it should be done. It needs
Because
to
it
be
was,
done.
I'm going to find that map. It was very impressive.
Fred?
I figure you might want to do it on a side quest because you like maps so much.
I do love maps.
Yeah.
I like to look at maps.
It costs money.
That other people make.
A really like Edgewise MapQuest reference there.
Sort of.
Okay.
There's more D&D, it was a side quest.
So,
Next question.
so, actually, this is a serious, important question dealing with seeker, that I think, Liz, you should talk with Mr. Gaba about. And that is, so you're sort of implying that the town board could hold a joint hearing, so to speak, at the same time that the scoping session is going on. I'm not so sure that that's possible.
That's what we'll find out.
It's certainly not usual, and it's not common. I think the way seeker is framed, it also is not encouraged. I'm not sure if it's disallowed, but I have never seen that actually happen. The scoping process is supposed to be really just to focus the question on what should the content of the environmental impact statement be. And in this case, I'm assuming, I don't know that I heard you say it today, but it's a generic environmental impact statement, most likely.
Yes.
Because that's what comprehensive plan EISs are.
Yep.
But the scoping session is usually precursing, is that a verb?
Let's go with it.
Happening before the public hearing process starts.
Yes.
And it's really just to tailor the environmental impact statement so it doesn't get totally out of hand, and it focuses on what will be included in it. And then seeker requires a public hearing on the environmental impact statement.
Yep.
And that's usually what is concurrent with action on the plan document. So the joint public hearing would actually be at the point where
But it's the hearing on the EIS
the hearing
and
on
the.
the
Yep.
EIS and on the
I agree with what you're saying. The other thing I have to point out is that I've had comprehensive plans with the GIS that didn't have a scoping session.
although now it's required.
Right,
The more
now it's
recent-
required.
yeah, the more recent amendments.
And there isn't, there isn't a whole lot to scope on a comprehensive plan
But
update.
still, there is a process.
Of
So-
course, of course.
So, I'm
And
just
I don't-
saying- and I'm not the attorney, so certainly, but I have a lot of experience with these things.
Yep,
So
and, yeah,
sometimes experience
yep.
is a good thing, and
You don't have
anyway,
to.
I won't get myself into trouble.
You're raising a good point, and we never got around to discussing it when we were on the phone today. And then afterwards, I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, we have to hold 2 hearings. Why couldn't we? If people are commenting on scoping, they could also be commenting on the comprehensive plan update, the draft that's currently going.
Yeah,
I understand.
But likely
Find out
they,
from Steve, right?
Yep, we'll find out from Steve what he thinks. And I think then we're talking about probably going into February. Which is fine. I mean, at this point, it's a matter of, we really have substantially a lot of the plan, most of it. And we're entering into the review process and beefing it up where needed and refining it where needed, and so. Yes.
Okay.
If the committee's ready.
Any other questions before we adjourn?
Yeah, I have one.
Yes.
Other than just establishing connections with people at the school districts, are there specific questions that we need answered from them? I'm asking because I'm a education policy analyst, so I didn't know if there's anything that I'm able to provide if we don't get a response from the school districts.
Oh, I don't think there are any required.
Okay.
I think one of the questions that was brought up is projected, what does our school district look like? So are we going to have an
Numbers.
influx of kids as we have more people in Are they projecting that, are they not projecting that, or is it a decrease?
What's the trend?
What's the trend? Is the trend for the schools to get bigger, to merge even?
Yeah.
You know, are those plans? I think someone had mentioned that with Beacon, because Beacon is getting overloaded, and so then it might merge with ours. So all these things affect us, and where we push that, and it's also a section in our thing. So any questions that would relate to that
But
ultimately?
I mean, I think there are only certain things that the town board or the comprehensive plan committee is going to be able to say about what the school district should or shouldn't do.
We can put in that the school is saying that there'll be an influx of students for the next 5 years on an upward trend or on a downward trend.
If nothing else, we can let them know what we're doing.
What we're doing, and you
In case
could.
they have-
they
Yeah,
might
I
give
guess
us
I thought the
information.
role here was to let them know that the town's doing a comprehensive plan update, and do they have any
a
comments
heads
or
up.
concerns?
That also.
Yeah, we're not projecting anything really different in our comprehensive plan, because we're not planning on changing any zoning.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything. We're not gonna say we're gonna have a whole big influx of
Right,
people coming in.
What we had discussed earlier about some of the unused properties, steering it towards residential and clustering versus, you know.
I don't think, in my opinion, I don't know, I raised the issue of that I would say maybe up through the mid to late 80s, there was a lot of, maybe even into the 90s, there was concern about school districts being, you know, it was the boomlet. And then everything kind of dropped off. But a lot of communities started asking large residential developments to do fiscal impact analyses to figure out how many school kids were they going to bring into the system, and how much, you know, tax income were they likely to bring in. And I'm seeing less and less of that. And the other thing that has occurred is that Rutgers, who came up with the demographic multipliers for how many people, how many school-age children, they haven't changed that since June of, I think, 2008, because those demographic multipliers have flattened out. So even if I'm looking at the Hudson Heritage Project and they're saying, based on the multipliers, we're going to have this many kids, they're probably going to have less. So I think a lot of communities went for more ratables to try to bridge the gap, and maybe that isn't as much of a concern now, and you're going to find that mixed use, and sometimes the developers are going to know where the market is, and.
Well, there's a difference between market and then what we as a community.
Sure.
Have to consider.
And I would guess that if you're driving up and down Route 9, I feel like Fishkill has a lot of
Residents.
non-residential. I mean,
Oh.
pretty intense,
Yes,
all
but
the
we have a
different
lot of
sectors.
intense,
You've commercial, you have
Residential.
medical, huge
Yeah.
medical offices, you have the trucking facility. I mean, it's amazing how much there is in Fishkill. But, you know,
You
not
also
not
have-
any different than, say, town of Poughkeepsie. Well, I think you have more highway.
I think you also have a lot of like condominium complexes and apartment buildings and things like that, which I think in the last, probably
They have
within the
not
last
brought
10
in-
years,
they have
they
not
have
brought in-
really,
They have not brought in the children. They have not been building 3-bedroom condominiums, they're building 2-bedroom condominiums.
Anyway.
All right, which
So-
really restricts the kids.
Well-
We used to have 10,
Sorry.
we have 10, in the Wappinger School System, we
thought it was
have
gonna
10
be a quick
elementary
question.
schools.
Going for 9
They were
o'clock.
closing
We made
a
this
few years
start.
ago.
All right.
And they reopened.
So
so finding out the answer is where I'm asking. That's,
the answer of what they think their population.
yes.
That I can call and ask.
They have lots
They
of
may even
capacity.
have a study somewhere, but I didn't find it on their website.
You're saying that with what we think.
No,
versus
I'm
what they
doing it
know.
with what I know, what's going on with the kids, and number of kids that I have in the Little League program, and everything else going around.
But
They're
we're not
they're
the only
there.
ones in that school district.
What, excuse me?
We're not the only ones in that school district.
Why don't I look into this? If
Yes.
you want to look into it and find out too, let me know what you find.
If you
Sounds
look
like
at
we
the
need
census,
information,
The last
and-
census.
Yes.
We are way down in children in our school system.
So instead
Guys, I'm going to adjourn, and you guys can continue. So thank you for attending. Mr. O'Malley, thank you.
Yes, thank you all for being
At the
here.
request of Fred Cantor, we are reconvening
I'll second that.
Wednesday, November 9th,
Yes.
7 PM, right here at Town Hall.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you
Happy
all.
Halloween.
Yes, happy Halloween.
And remember, the town ordinance is in effect.
What?